All right, welcome in, guys. Farzin Vasugian here with you for another episode of the Chief Zone podcast. Welcome in on a Monday. Hope you guys are doing well. Hope you guys are excited. This is already a very busy Monday. A lot going on. Obviously, the big news today, we now know who will visit the Kansas City Chiefs on banner night on the night to open up the 2024 NFL season, and it is going to be the Baltimore Ravens. So that is definitely a big topic to get into. Talk about that, the storylines behind all of that. Was this the right decision? What other options did the NFL possibly consider? We'll get into that. Also, a little bit of an update on the Rashee Rice situation, both involving both incidents, both the speeding incident as well as the alleged bar incident in Dallas. So a couple of things to get into regarding that front with Rashee Rice. So we'll get into that later on. I see you guys coming into the live stream on Facebook and on YouTube. Appreciate you guys taking the time to watch and listen live. For all of you watching, or not watching, but listening rather, on Apple, Spotify, YouTube Music, wherever it is you're downloading and listening to the podcast. Appreciate all of you guys. Appreciate everyone taking the time to make the Chiefs Zone part of your day. Before we move on, I want to let you know this podcast is brought to you by SeatGeek. I'll tell you what, those tickets for the Chiefs Ravens season opener, they're pretty pricey. And we're talking like row 30, where Jordan Love's mom sat. Yeah, I mean, they're going for more than $300 already. SeatGeek, that is a place to go for your ticketing needs. Sporting event, you want to go check out the Chiefs and Ravens game to open up the 2024 NFL season. Want to see that banner drop? Want to see the celebration before the game? Go check it out. You can use my promo code Farzin if you're a new SeatGeek customer, and you can save $20 off your first purchase from SeatGeek. Might as well do it. I mean, ticket prices for that game are pretty damn expensive. Understandably so. So go to SeatGeek.com, choose your tickets, use the promo code Farzin if you're a new customer of SeatGeeks, and you can save $20 off your first purchase. All right, let's get right into it. I want to know what you guys are thinking. Do you guys think the NFL made the right decision for picking the Ravens to come to Kansas City? Of course, we now know who it's going to be. Week 1, Thursday, September the 5th, Chiefs versus Ravens. And what should be a very good AFC clash to open up the 2024 NFL season. So there are a lot of storylines coming into this game. And by the way, as far as the betting lines go, the Chiefs are 3-point favorites. So take that for what it's worth to you on Monday, May the 13th, a few months in advance, of course. Now, with that said, 5 reasons why the NFL chose the Ravens to visit the Chiefs to open up the 2024 NFL season. Number 1, obviously an AFC Championship rematch here. The way that game went, the Chiefs pretty quiet in the second half of that AFC title game, but the Ravens absolutely imploded. Not a way they wanted to end the season, especially when they were the number 1 seed in the NFL. They destroyed the 49ers, the team that went on to the Super Bowl. The Chiefs were a team that a lot of people just felt like they could not trust after watching them all year long, and understandably so, but the Chiefs found a way at the end of the day to come away with the big win in that AFC title game and eventually in the Super Bowl. Second reason why the NFL chose this game, the reigning Super Bowl MVP, regular season reigning Super Bowl MVP versus the reigning regular season MVP. That's the big matchup right there. Lamar Jackson has won the MVP twice. Mahomes has won Super Bowl MVP 3 times. He's also won the regular season MVP twice. So a lot of MVP honors and awards here between the two. 5 for Patrick Mahomes, 2 for Lamar Jackson. So there's another reason. Here's the third reason why the NFL's picking this game. Not that, they had a choice. The Chiefs are obviously going to be featured regardless, but I think a lot of people want to know, what is the Chiefs offense going to look like? Because you're going to have probably a new set of starters for this week 1 game. Because who were the starting receivers for last year's season opener when the Chiefs dropped the game to the Lions? See what I did there? Dropped the game to the Lions. You had Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Sky Moore, and Kadarius Toney. Those were tabbed as your 3 expected starters for the 2024 season. And obviously those guys, unfortunately, were some of your most unproductive players as the season went on. You have Hollywood Brown now. You have Xavier Worthy. Maybe Rashee Rice. We don't quite know if he's going to be available. We'll get into that later on. But in general, man, I mean, this is an offense that's specifically with these starting wide receivers got a big facelift. It's very likely that your starting receivers, assuming you're going to go with an 11 personnel, is going to be Hollywood Brown, Xavier Worthy, and then the third receiver might be either Rashee Rice or Kadarius Toney could be that third guy. We don't know. But that is what Kansas City's starting receiving core is going to look like. Obviously, a lot different from a year ago. The fourth reason why the NFL probably chose to go with this game, Hollywood Brown going up against his former team, the team that drafted him in 2019 in the first round of the 2019 NFL draft. And I was looking at some of Hollywood Brown's numbers before starting the podcast. Man, it was kind of surprising that things just didn't really pan out too well. Maybe not too surprising, but I'm looking at some of the stats here. I'm looking at the 2020 season, and I didn't realize this until now. Hollywood Brown had 769 yards and 8 touchdowns. He was the leading pass catcher for both the receiving yards and receiving touchdowns. He also co-led the team in catches with Mark Andrews. Mark Andrews, for the record, had 701 yards and 7 touchdowns. So pretty similar numbers, not too far apart there. But I'm looking at total catches and total targets. Mark Andrews had 58 catches for off 88 targets. It's not great. And that's not really on Mark Andrews. We all know who's throwing the football there. You look at Hollywood Brown, he had 58 catches. I mentioned he co-led the team in catches that year, obviously doing so with Mark Andrews, who also had 58. Off 100 targets. So you do the simple math there. Hollywood Brown caught 58% of the passes that were thrown at his direction. Now, he did have a few drops that year. I know he'd been dealing with some drops earlier in his career. Not as egregious as what the Chiefs just went through last year. Listen, everyone goes through drops. Every player drops a pass. Some elite ones, they go more than a year without a drop. But every player goes through with that. It's not like it was overly egregious with Hollywood Brown during his time in Baltimore. But again, consider who's throwing the football here. It's Lamar Jackson. And let me just say this about Lamar Jackson, because I was one of those people who doubted him and said that he would not have a very long NFL career. He's won 2 MVP awards. And keep in mind who are some of the other quarterbacks in the NFL that he's been winning the MVP award over. I mean, the only player he hasn't really been able to be better than is Patrick Mahomes. Aaron Rodgers did go back-to-back. I can't remember exactly what year Lamar Jackson was drafted. I want to say it was the 2018 season. Yeah, it was the 2018 season. So, you go, 2018. You go through your rookie year, all of that, and then you start playing at a high level. 2019, his second year in the NFL, he won the MVP award unanimously. This year, he won the MVP award. I don't think it was unanimous, but pretty close to it. So my whole point with this is, because a lot of people have talked about how Hollywood Brown hasn't really been successful, especially for a guy who was taken in the first round. Well, I can't imagine why, when Lamar Jackson, who is not necessarily the best passer in the NFL, has he come through at times? Yes. But overall body of work has not been the most successful passer. The reason he's won the MVP twice, he has found ways to lift this Baltimore Ravens team on multiple occasions and giving them the number one seed a couple of times. Because we've gone through this discussion before. This was right around Super Bowl week when Jackson officially won the MVP award. Who would you rather have with the game on the line? Do you want Lamar Jackson, or are you going with a bunch of other quarterbacks? Obviously, Patrick Mahomes should be number one on a lot of teams' lists. Josh Allen, Joe Burrow. I would even take CJ Stroud right now over Lamar Jackson. On the NFC side, Jalen Hurts, Matthew Stafford, just a couple of guys to name there. For a guy who's won a couple of MVP awards, I just don't know, like, hypothetically, if we had like a fantasy draft, not as a fantasy football draft, just a draft where everyone was cut available and it's a free-for-all. You go in order. Is Lamar Jackson going to be a top 10 picked quarterback? I don't know. I just don't. And that's the crazy thing, because this guy has won the MVP award twice. But his postseason success, not very good. Not very good. I remember when the Ravens beat the Texans, Lamar kind of just brought it up after the game. He's like, yeah, I heard all the noise about how I can't win a playoff game. Well, your record is what, 2-4, I think, off the top of my head. It's not very good still. And that AFC title game was not a good look for the Baltimore Ravens offense. Now, the whole thing with Zay Flowers, that does not fall on Lamar Jackson. I think there were a lot of things on the defensive side that did not help Baltimore's case with, 4 unsportsmanlike penalties? And then the taunting penalty also later on in the game. Not unsportsmanlike, 4 unsportsmanlike. It was 4 unnecessary roughness penalties. It had 2 on Patrick Mahomes, where the defenders were hitting him right in the helmet. And then you had another one where, I can't remember if it was Roquan Smith or Patrick Queen. I think it was Smith, who, like an idiot, just decided to drill Trey Smith before the snap, because the attempt was to stop the clock when all you had to do was just tap him on the shoulder. Instead, you decided to shove him backwards aggressively, drawing a 15-yard penalty instead. I mean, that ball kind of goes back to one of the other points about why they picked this game. But man, this whole thing with Lamar Jackson, I just don't know. Like, you can't criticize Hollywood Brown for his lack of production in Baltimore and say, oh yeah, that's on him. No, I mean, look who's throwing the ball to him. And then he goes to Arizona, and unfortunately there was a carousel of quarterbacks. And I like Kyler Murray, I really do. But that just was not the place for any receiver to go. But I'm glad he's in Kansas City. I think Patrick Mahomes is going to utilize him and bring out the best in Hollywood Brown. I think Hollywood Brown is going to have his best year. Andy Reid does this too. Like, when Andy Reid came to Kansas City his first year in 2013, he had Alex Smith and Jamal Charles as a quarterback and his running back. Jamal Charles was already a great running back, but he was even better under Andy Reid. And unfortunately, we only saw just a couple of seasons of Charles playing under Reid, because 2015 he had the torn ACL early. 2016 just only played a few games. It still had knee issues, so we didn't really see much of Jamal Charles under Andy Reid. Only 2 seasons of that, and I think unfortunately Charles was robbed of that opportunity, because he probably would have had a phenomenal career, probably a for sure shoo-in for the Hall of Fame if he had Andy Reid his entire career. Alex Smith, just look at his numbers, man. Alex Smith's 2013 season, although, the offense was not playing as well as people would have liked, was still the best year he had compared to all of the seasons before in San Francisco. So anyway, I know I went down a few rabbit holes there, but in general, like, I just don't know if you can look at Hollywood Brown during his time in Baltimore and say, yeah, his lack of production, that's all on Hollywood. I think Lamar Jackson, that style of offense right there, just not very good, especially for a speedy receiver who you want to take advantage of that speed to your advantage, utilize that, and have him go downfield. But Lamar Jackson just doesn't do very well when he throws the ball that deep. Whereas Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, that is their bread and butter. We saw it with Tyreek Hill. We've seen it with a few other receivers here and there. And now Mahomes has two dangerous speedsters in Hollywood and Xavier Worthy, to go back to the previous point as to why the NFL picked this game. And that's going to be a lot of fun to watch. The last reason why the NFL picked this game, listen, let's not pretend like nobody thought of this already. Justin Tucker and what he's going to do during pregame. You know for a fact that the NBC pregame show is going to have multiple cameras on Justin Tucker. They are going to follow every move he makes during pregame. He's getting closer and closer to the end zone, warming up. Oh, they're going to keep track of that. Which side of the field is he going to be on? They're going to keep track of all of that. And I guarantee you, when they go in and out of commercials during those pregame shows, they like to show, some of the fans at the stadium that arrive early, some of the players who are warming up early. They will show Justin Tucker warming up early. They'll probably show him multiple times. Put it down right now. They're going to do that. 100%. Absolutely will be doing that. So those are the 5 reasons as to why the NFL picked the Ravens to come into Arrowhead Stadium. Scott's asking, how about signing Michael Thomas? Oh, so we should back up a little bit here, and I'll get to your question in a second, Scott. But Tyler Boyd has signed with the Tennessee Titans, and that came just hours before the news dropped about Rashee Rice and the bar incident. And then the Chiefs did bring in Zay Jones for a visit, but who did Zay Jones end up signing with? I don't recall. The Cardinals. That's who it was. The Cardinals. So they brought him in last week for a visit, and then a day later he went and signed with the Cardinals. He had been visiting the Cardinals, the Titans, and the Cowboys. So he had visited several teams following the draft, including the Chiefs, and he decided to go to Arizona. So the Chiefs have definitely been keeping an eye out for another wide receiver. Now, Scott did mention, what about Michael Thomas? Another veteran that's out there is Julio Jones. Those are a couple of guys to be aware of. Robert's also asking, what are the chances of bringing MVS or McCole Hardman back on a cheaper deal? Look, I read you the top 5 available free agents on last week's podcast, and number 4 was, I can't remember who number 4 and number 5 were, but it was McCole Hardman and Marquez Valdez-Scantling. So I don't know how many people are too fond of the idea of bringing back MVS and or McCole. I will say I'm not opposed to bringing McCole Hardman back, because even though his progression has kind of taken forever to develop, he is a guy that has some upside that is worth giving another chance to. And it obviously depends on how long Rashee Rice might be able. I'll say this right now. I honestly would be more intrigued to bring back McCole Hardman than Sky Moore. I mean, I really. But then again, it's like, as much as I really want to give McCole Hardman one more opportunity, it kind of does scare you about his overall body of work. A couple of, I think in that week 18 game when Blaine Gabbert was a quarterback, that deep pass that McCole Hardman just completely lost track of, wide open. A week later, same exact thing happened. But that time it was Patrick Mahomes who threw it. The Buffalo game, fumbled not once, but twice in front of the end zone. The second one went back for a touchback, which, I mean, okay. I kind of criticize Andy Reid more for making that play call. Like, why are we getting so cute inside the 5? Makes no sense, especially when Isaiah Pacheco was having a great night against the Bills. Could have made it a 2-possession game. And by the way, Bills fans always keep saying, oh, well, you got lucky because our kicker missed. I keep saying this all along, and Bills fans just keep dismissing it. The Bills are very fortunate they even had a chance to tie that game. If McCole Hardman was not fumbling the ball, or if Andy Reid just made a very simple running decision inside the 5 there, that's a 10-point game. Maybe Buffalo cuts the deficit. I don't know, but Buffalo's lucky they even had a chance to tie that football game. So the whole thing with, I'm seeing some of the comments right now. There are some people just really not sure. We're seeing, a lot of people not fans of Sky Moore. I'm seeing some of Sky Less comments on there. I just don't know at the end of the day, what do you do if you're Kansas City? Let me just start off here, because how many receivers did the Chiefs have for most of last year? 7 receivers on the 53-man roster. I don't think it's going to be 7 this year. I think it's going to be 6. Who are the 6 going to be? Let's just assume Rashee Rice is not suspended for now. But I think your 6 would be Hollywood, Rice, Worthy, Kadarius Toney. I think those are 4 locks. I think Sky Moore would be the 5th guy, even though, I'm not really the biggest fan of his, and I think his progression has been taking forever. And I think Justin Watson has to be the other guy. Although Justin Watson was guilty of some drops last year as well as the year before, Watson was still one of your more productive receivers. He was the most productive wide receiver on the team until Rashee Rice's emergence during the second half of the season. So I don't know who the 5th and 6th wide receivers are going to be. I assume listen, I like Justin Watson for depth purposes. I know Sky Moore has some potential. He had some good things in college, but that was years ago now. We're at a point now where we need to see that second round production, and we're not seeing that out of Sky Moore at the moment. Rashee Rice has only been in the league 1 year, and he's already picked up the offense better than Sky Moore. And this is a guy, obviously, who we don't quite know what his future is going to look like. Yeah, Hunter Renfrow, I think, is who you're talking about, Scott. Yeah, he's available. And I've always thought he listen, that Raiders team a couple of years ago in 2022, I think it was Darren Waller's final year with the team. That was a really good Raiders unit. I'm not going to call it a good offense, because who was your quarterback? Derek Carr. And I think they're kind of in a similar situation now, where they do have a good group of skill position players, but they don't have a quarterback to work with. And I don't know what it is with the Raiders, especially their fan base, being so content with the mediocrity at that quarterback position. But I mean, that's your standard there, I guess. Samuel's asking, what QBs would you take over Lamar Jackson in the AFC? Patrick Mahomes, number 1 for sure. And then at this point, in no particular order, I would say Burrow, Allen, Mahomes, Burrow, Allen. I would take Herbert over Lamar Jackson. CJ Stroud for sure. Deshaun Watson, I'm not really sure. Tua, but only because of his pass catchers that he has around him. Trevor Lawrence, I like Trevor Lawrence, I really do, but the whole once in a generation quarterback, that is, he's not living up to that hype. I think Trevor Lawrence is a good quarterback, but I think that's where I kind of draw the line. It's like, okay, there are probably 5 quarterbacks that I would take over Lamar. It's Mahomes, Burrow, Allen, CJ Stroud, and then probably I think I would take Trevor Lawrence over Lamar. I mean, you would have to. I mean, I would take Tua again. Not that I think Tua is great, but he certainly has taken advantage of what's been given to him the past couple of years. Lamar Jackson has had a good group of receivers in years past, but has not taken full advantage of it. And we kind of went over it just recently with how the offense looked when Hollywood Brown was there. So yeah, to answer your question, there are definitely some guys to consider over. Kay says Caleb Williams. I mean, he's on the AFC, but yeah, it's gonna be interesting. Fargo says going to be a good one. Our house going to be a lot of yelling. We got Ravens fans and Chiefs fans in our house. Oh, there you go. That'll be a fun night for sure. Before we go further and talk about Rashee Rice and some of the news that's been coming out with him, I do want to discuss this with you guys. And by the way, there is no right or wrong answer with what you prefer. Because I'm already seeing people shame other. Oh, you spend so much money to go to games, or you're too broke to afford tickets. Come on. These are the ticket prices here, courtesy of SeatGeek. There was a $317 ticket that is gone, but these are the ticket prices right now listed on SeatGeek. I want to see if I can zoom this out a little. No, it only gives me two viewing options. Okay, I think you guys can see that, right? Or is that too small? If it's too small, let me. So for those who are on the podcast version, also, I guess I should read it out. But there are almost 600 listings on SeatGeek for Ravens versus Chiefs on September the 5th. $327. That is the cheapest ticket right now. That is section 306, row 30. This is essentially where Jordan Love's mom sat, all the way in the back row. Next ticket, $330, $334, and $339. Those are your cheapest ticket prices. And again, these are, third level all the way in the back row we're talking about here. You guys tell me, is it worth it for you to go to games? Because I remember a few people over the years have commented and said that, oh yeah, CJ Stroud, I forgot. Yeah, for sure, Jacob. People have complained about the ticket prices for Chiefs games over the last 6, 7, 8 years. I still remember in 2015 when the Royals were playing at a very high level and how expensive their tickets got. Those like very cheap tickets in the third level, I mean, those prices tripled, and they were very hard to find because the Royals were selling out games throughout the season. Obviously, people were very interested because we were watching a product that we had never seen in many of our lifetimes here in Kansas City. So, and it was to the point where people on talk radio brought this up, and it was a big deal about how, getting those cheap tickets are not a thing anymore. You can do that now with the Royals. They're competitive now. They're not as great as they were in 2015. They're not, they don't have the best record in the American League, but they're still, somewhat competitive, but you can still find tickets, anywhere in the stadium. Now, I'm sure we'll probably, if the Royals continue their success that they're having right now, yeah, you'll probably see ticket prices go up, and you'll probably see a lot more attendance, especially during the summertime now. That's just for reference here, because with the Chiefs, you're seeing the same thing. They're playing much better than they had been prior to Patrick Mahomes, and ticket prices have gone up quite a lot. It also feels like ticket prices for anything have gone up a lot since 2020, especially in the NFL, because that is the sport that probably suffered the most with either no capacity or limited capacity, to the point where they wanted to make up for that, and they increase a lot of their ticket price, especially when your team is good as Kansas City. Listen, I had this discussion earlier today with my brother about this, because I'm looking at the prices again. Like, they're high for sure. And keep in mind, these could change, obviously, as we go on. If it's the week of the game and we find out there's bad weather, we got rain coming in, the prices are going to drop drastically. You guys all saw the ticket prices for the Miami playoff game. They were very cheap. In fact, if you use my promo code at SeatGeek, you could have gone to the game for $15 or $20 total. Maybe a little more than that. That's just for a single ticket, that is. But here's my whole point here with this. The Chiefs, they're great right now, even with how bad I say how bad they were last year, but they won the Super Bowl. We forget that. The Chiefs are a hot ticket. Everyone goes crazy for Patrick Mahomes, and now with Taylor Swift being part of the fan base because of her connection to Travis Kelce, that's a huge deal now. People are literally watching and attending games because of her. So the Chiefs can do whatever the hell they want. They can set these prices as high as they want because they know that they will sell these tickets. They know that you want to go and watch the best team in the NFL, the team that's gone back-to-back trying to go for a three-peat. They've won 3 in 5 years. They've got the biggest superstar in the world in the building, and people want to go just to see her. And if they're not going, they're damn sure watching. No, not everyone's interested in seeing her, but that's just the way things work. The sport has drawn a lot of ratings, specifically the Chiefs, because of her. So at the end of the day, the Chiefs can jack up the prices as high. Now, this is SeatGeek to be clear, but once you go on the Chiefs website and you see their ticket prices, I'm sure it'll be very high this year. That's when SeatGeek and all of these other ticketing apps will definitely change their prices as well to reflect that. Listen, you guys know my setup. I've got a pretty big setup that I've spent a lot of money on over the years. And people have asked me so many times, like, why do you not go to games? I just enjoy the home viewing experience way more. I mean, you go to an event, you don't get the luxury of the announcers and what they're talking about and maybe what they're pointing out specifically on a replay. Because if you're at the game, yeah, sure, maybe you can check Twitter and see what the commentary is all about. But even then, it's not easy to understand exactly what the announcers are saying, what the rules expert might be saying. Yeah, I'm seeing some people say, yeah, the home viewing experience is better. Not willing to spend that much money for nosebleeds. Yeah, that's a lot of money. Somebody responded to me on Twitter, and they said that they spent the same amount of money on lower level seats at SoFi Stadium. If that's true, man, I'd be very surprised that a place like SoFi would even charge that low for lower level seating, because you would think, kind of like Allegiant Stadium, where it's mostly visiting fans coming into the games, you would think that people would also, LA is a big city. I'm sure there's a solid representation of all of the other 31 other NFL teams there. Well, I should say 30 because the Rams are also there. Because I'm thinking of the Chargers mainly. But you would think that maybe, LA, either you live there or you want to go visit there to see your team play, because you know that they don't have a strong contingency of fans, Rams or Chargers. So, I'd be very surprised if that really was their ticket prices there. But in general, man, I think it's kind of getting to the point now where, yeah, I think people are going to start considering. Because here's the other thing too. Like, I was joking about this the other day. It's getting to the point now where every February I'm just prepared to spend a bunch of money on Super Bowl merchandise, because that's just the expectation now in Kansas City. And if it doesn't happen one year, well, you definitely expect it the following year, or pretty damn close to it, because the Chiefs are going to be going to a lot more Super Bowls. So you kind of have to think about, what you're going to do, how you want to spend your money here and there, because yeah, I mean, the prices for these things are only going to go up, especially if they continue to play at this level, which they will. I do think after 2024, there's going to be a little bit of a lull period where they're not going to be Super Bowl threats, but they'll be back shortly after that. Ticket prices are still going to go up because they'll still continue to win a lot of games regardless, even if they don't finish the season as Super Bowl champs. So I don't know, man. I'm not one to shame people if they can't afford seats or tickets. Because, dude, it is it's a lot. Here's the other thing too. Like, I prefer to attend a primetime game rather than a Sunday game, because when you're at the game on a Sunday, you can't really focus on what else is happening around the league. Like, I've been to games and then I go home after the games on a Sunday, and it's just like, oh, I had no idea this happened at this game. It's like, because then you have to like read all these different recaps, or watch all of these highlights closely, or watch like extended versions of these highlights, because you want to know what happened at all of these other games. Because you guys know me, I follow not just the Chiefs, but all of the NFL closely as a whole. So I don't know. I mean, everyone has their own preference. There are some people that are completely content, spending this much money. They save up just to go to games, and that's perfectly fine. That's how you want to live. But at the same time, it can be a bit too much. I mean, that is a lot on the price. Me personally, I mean, I can afford it. I just choose to spend my money on other things, and there's nothing wrong with that. So I was just curious what you guys thought, because I did see a big discussion about this on Twitter among Chiefs fans today. So we'll leave it at that and move on. Talk about Rashee Rice to wrap up here on the podcast. Actually, before we get into that, I do want to say, I guess the only thing that was surprising to me about the Chiefs or the NFL picking the Ravens to visit the Chiefs, I actually thought they were going to pick the Bengals because, the Texans, that's a great game, but there aren't I guess there isn't like a big storyline behind it, even though this could be an AFC Championship preview. There isn't like a big storyline for Chiefs versus Texans. Chiefs versus Raiders. Yeah, well, the Chiefs won the Super Bowl in their own stadium. And the Raiders, last time they played was on Christmas, and the Raiders had the big win at Arrowhead. And then Antonio Pierce goes on a podcast, on Max Crosby's podcast, and says, we have the secret recipe now to beat Patrick Mahomes. Really? You now have the secret recipe because of one game over Mahomes? Okay, let's see it on week one. That's what I was hoping for. Last week, Joe Burrow and his return with the team, practicing, throwing the football around, especially when he had that sleeve on, that got a lot of discussion last week among the national media. And I thought, you know what? Yeah, you have the Chiefs and Bengals rivalry. Like, that's already a big deal. And the Chiefs are reigning champs, of course, so they're obviously they're already on the primetime slot to open up the season. But what about Joe Burrow's return? If there was ever a perfect time to put Joe Burrow's return on national TV, this was it right here. I think the NFL may have missed on a big opportunity to have that storyline. And look, I don't know exactly how it works with CBS and Fox and how willing they are to allow these games to go to primetime. We have yet to see a Chiefs-Bengals regular season game on primetime between Mahomes and Burrow. 2018, they played on primetime. That was before. That was, oddly enough, that was a game that got flexed into primetime, but the Chiefs blew out the Bengals in that one. Arthur, we'll get into that shortly. We have not touched on that just yet. Samuel says the NFL doesn't want a division rival game for the opener. I mean, I think they've done it before. To me, it's just like, yeah, I get it. We're already going to have a lot of people watching, especially now that Taylor Swift is part of the fan base. You could put an XFL team and all the Swifties would still watch just because of Taylor Swift. So I don't know exactly what the right move was. I just felt like there was a big missed opportunity to put the Bengals and have the Joe Burrow narrative. I'll say this right now. I still truly believe you should put the Bengals on primetime. You absolutely should, because I think everyone wants to know what the Bengals and specifically Joe Burrow is going to look like when he comes back, because there's a lot of concern with his whole situation, all the injuries he suffered, not just the amount of injuries, the types of injuries he suffered. So I don't know. I guess they're going to save it late in the season like they do every single time these two teams play in the regular season. So we'll probably end up seeing those teams play late in the year. Okay, let's get into the Rashee Rice situation here, because that is taking a very interesting turn. Let's start with the alleged bar incident in which Rice was accused of hitting a photographer and breaking his jaw. The Dallas Morning News reported that the photographer allegedly was, quote unquote, lured back to the nightclub because the photographer was under the impression that he was asked to return to take pictures of Rashee Rice or some sort of event he was having at that nightclub. Rice allegedly messaged this photographer on Instagram telling him to come back and then supposedly hit him when he came back. The bar owner spoke to a local TV station in Dallas and said that Rice was kind to everyone that he saw. Did not appear that Rice was drinking, according to the bar owner, and did not see any wrongdoings on camera. He says the bar owner says he will continue to check security footage to make sure he doesn't miss anything. But I kind of thought about this as I was writing this. I'm like, wait a minute, that incident happened. It was on a late Sunday night, early Monday morning. Monday morning around 2:00 is when police got the call about the alleged assault. Here's what I'm wondering, because it's been 7 days now. Okay. 7 days is enough time for us to kind of get an answer on things, especially when we have cameras everywhere in this world. Okay. It's been 7 days. Let me put it to you guys like this. Even TMZ is struggling finding something to put out there, unless Rice did something and it is very well kept and hidden away from everyone else. I would like to think by now we would have seen something, or at least, because it's not hard to prove things when it's on camera, right? I mean, that's not up for debate. That's just a fact. So I think some people are a little confused about the incident that went down at the bar, how it happened. Apparently there was some arguing that took place as well. I think this incident is truly in question right now as to what really did or didn't happen. I still stand by some of the things that I said before. Rice has got to start maybe considering who he's hanging out with, because something happened. Something went down. Someone probably said or did something they should not have done. I'm not saying don't drink or don't go out. And to be clear, the bar owner said he wasn't drinking. But listen, do whatever. I don't think your life should be in shutdown mode just because you're involved in multiple lawsuits from a previous incident. I think you just need to be using better judgment and be very cautious of what you're doing when you're out and about. Is he a target for people to try to bait him into trouble again? Yeah, probably. There's no question about it. There are a lot of people that would love to say, yeah, I was that guy that got Rice in trouble for his second incident. Remember when Patrick Mahomes, a video of him went viral playing pickup basketball at a local gym, and the Chiefs Brett Veach was asked about it in an interview, and he immediately responded to the topic by saying, yeah, in a radio interview with A10, saying, yeah, we told him he can't do that. Why do you think the Chiefs were so quick to contact Mahomes and tell him not to do that? Because it just takes one idiot to just stretch out their leg to injure Mahomes. Because keep in mind, this was 2 hours, 2 days after Mahomes won his first MVP. Just takes one clown to do something they shouldn't do, and they can, go to their friends and claim, yeah, I injured Patrick Mahomes, or I started an argument with him at a pickup basketball game. You put yourself in those situations, man, especially when you're a superstar. I mean, Mahomes is a much bigger superstar now than he was back then. It's just one of those situations where you never want your star quarterback to be in that line of fire where, you just, by the way, let me just, for clarity here, I know what gym that was. That's Lifetime Fitness in Overland Park. I've actually played basketball there, pickup basketball. Dude, there are people who think they're trying out for the NBA at that gym. Like, they take it way too serious. Like, calm down. You're just playing pickup basketball at a local gym. You're not playing for an NBA contract or anything like that. It's just, I can completely understand why they don't want Mahomes playing pickup basketball with a bunch of people he doesn't know. Yeah, I'd be concerned about that as well. To circle this back to Rice, my point is, you don't ever want your players, especially your Super Bowl champs, your team is the shit, essentially. You just don't want to be involved in any of these potential situations. And unfortunately, Rice found himself in some sort of incident. What happened, we don't exactly know, but Rice did find himself in kind of a pickle here. We still, again, I want to be clear, we don't know exactly what happened. but Rice has got to use better judgment now. And this was brought up on Brady Quinn's radio show on Fox Sports Radio. Look at Tank Dell. I know it's a completely different matter, but Tank Dell was not doing anything wrong. And unfortunately, he got shot in some incident that didn't even involve him. Let me ask you guys this about Patrick Mahomes to go back to him. Do you think Patrick Mahomes, like if he and his wife Brittany, if they want to go out for a date night, do you think they just go to Joe's Kansas City, sit and dine right around everyone else? Do you think they go to the Cheesecake Factory at the Plaza where everyone else is? Hell no. Because first of all, they'll get swarmed by everyone wanting pictures and autographs. I don't care what anybody says. There's no way people are going to let him enjoy his night. That's just not how it works. Second of all, it just takes one idiot to find out, oh, Mahomes is here. Well, let me see if I can start some trouble with the reigning Super Bowl MVP. So again, circle this back to Rashee Rice. You got to start. My point with Mahomes is ultimately, like, if he's going out to do stuff, he is sitting in a VIP area away from the rest of the world, as he should. With Rice, obviously, he's not on the same level as Mahomes with his public stature, but people know who he is. He had a great rookie season, especially in the playoffs, won a Super Bowl as a rookie. And with this incident, the racing incident, and now the alleged bar incident, it's kind of in a situation now where it's like you gotta start making smarter decisions. Even if he did nothing wrong in this bar incident here, it's kind of at a point now where it's like, okay, he's clearly just being targeted now, just because. Kanan, I hope I said your name right. He says all these, quote, Chiefs, I don't know why you're putting Chiefs in quotes, fans that were, oh, get him out of here. He needs to go. He's a disgrace. Need to jump ship. I mean, I definitely think there are, if he did do something, which again, we don't have any proof of that, but if he did, I think the Chiefs do have a decision to make, but we're not at that point yet. We have to get proof of that first. I'm seeing a lot of people, I saw Pat McAfee say this as well on his show, saying get out of Dallas. Why? There are nightclubs in Kansas City. There are nightclubs in Cleveland, Ohio. There are nightclubs in Miami, Florida, Reno, Nevada, San Diego. Like, wherever you go, you can have access to nightclubs, women, alcohol, fast vehicles. I don't know exactly what a specific. Sure, he has a lot of his friends in the Dallas area. But I just don't know. Like, his friends can come with him to Kansas City. I don't know what's going to stop them from doing that. I just think he needs to make smarter decisions. If you got to put a curfew on yourself, put a damn curfew on yourself. If the team needs to do it, well, then, you know what? Andy Reid maybe needs to have a discussion about it with him, or Brett Veach, whoever. Yeah, see, Bob says dope and liquors every corner. And yeah, I mean, people were saying this about Kareem Hunt too, saying that he needs to get away from Ohio. Why? Any of those incidents could have happened anywhere else. Yes, he has a lot of his friends in Ohio, in Cleveland, but doesn't mean that they can't come hang out with him in Kansas City or wherever. You just need to make smarter decisions. Very simple. That's it. What's up, Christopher? Yeah, we're about to wrap up the show. I do want to now touch on the lawsuit because, yeah, there's more to this Rashee Rice story here. According to KCTV5 in court documents that were filed last Thursday, Rashee Rice denies all accusations listed in one of the two lawsuits that are currently filed against him from the late March car crash. Rice and his attorney are also asking the judge to either, one, dismiss the case, or two, have the plaintiff provide expert testimony to provide as proof of the claims, of those claims. I'm not a legal expert, so take everything I say with a grain of salt here, but my hunch is Rice and his attorney are going to lean very heavily on this police report that came out originally when the crash happened, and that the report stated there were no serious injuries when the accident occurred involving the 6 vehicles. Because in these lawsuits, they claim otherwise. Weeks later, there are all kinds of injuries that certain people suffered. So Rice's attorney, who's apparently a big hotshot in the Dallas area and in the state of Texas, I guess, my guess is they're going to lean very heavily on this police report and say, hey, they're claiming they suffered all these injuries, but in this police report, they didn't say that was the case here. Listen, I will say this. So sometimes we get these police reports involving car accidents. I'll give you an example, and I don't like to compare one car accident to another because, no two incidents are exactly the same. But in the Britt Reed incident, we knew that the young girl, Ariel Young, we knew she was in critical condition, but specifically, we had no idea until several weeks later. In fact, we had no idea that the vehicles just were completely totaled. That we had no idea of until weeks later also in that ABC segment. So a lot of times these things, because here's my thing, like, I don't want to dismiss what Rice and his attorney are trying to point out. And I also don't want to dismiss these people and what they're claiming, because I don't know how they're feeling physically. I did not evaluate them. I'm not a doctor, so I don't really know. But I guess for Rice's sake here, he and his attorney are going to use that police report as leverage and say BS on the serious injuries wasn't the case in this police report. That's my guess here. Again, I'm not a legal expert, so I have no idea, but I would imagine that is what Rice and his attorney are going to lean heavily on as this continues to unfold. Yeah, Jared Goff, 4 years, $212 million, making him the highest paid Lion in history. Yeah, I mean, listen, I've always liked Jared Goff. I do think, the Rams were right to trade him. They won a Super Bowl without him. But I kind of felt bad because I felt like he was doing some good things in L.A. And then, for whatever reason, just didn't work out, and they ended up trading him. And he's been able to do better in Detroit. And listen, I think Detroit fans should be thrilled because this is the best football they've had in quite a long time. This is the best they've looked in a very long time. So, I'm not exactly sure how things are going to go for the Lions as things continue to unfold, but I think they've got a pretty good reason to be excited. Obviously, last year was a big year for them. They came into Arrowhead and they beat the Chiefs, and they were so close to going to the Super Bowl. They should have gone to the Super Bowl. 100% should have gone to the Super Bowl. But shoulda, woulda, coulda. Still not a great season. I think, you can appreciate what the Lions did. Yeah, it ended on a very poor note. But now it's like, okay, the standard's very high. It's time to go out and go to a Super Bowl this time. But to finish up here on this podcast, look at this. Okay. This is from Adam Schefter earlier today after Jared Goff signed his deal. These are the 5 highest paid quarterbacks in the NFL on a per year basis. Joe Burrow's number 1, Jared Goff is number 2, Herbert's 3rd, Lamar Jackson 4th, and rounding up the top 5 list is Jalen Hurts. All of them making at least $50 million per year on average. What do all 5 of these have in common? They have no Super Bowl rings. We talked about this last year in training camp when running backs were pissed off that they're not getting the respect they deserve, when quarterbacks are all getting overpaid. Look at this. I mean, look at the numbers here. It's crazy. This doesn't make any sense to me, because look at the Bengals, for example. We're at $55 million. Okay, great. You got your quarterback, but you also overpaid Orlando Brown recently too. How are you going to keep T. Higgins, who wants a new deal? How are you going to keep Trey Hendrickson, who's currently unhappy? I mean, Jamar Chase is another guy you got to consider in the near future, too. I assume they're going to use a fifth-year option if they haven't already on him. I mean, you got to think about success with the rest of the team as well, which is why you really appreciate Patrick Mahomes, because he has taken multiple pay cuts to not just stay with the team, but also help them with the salary cap. You have quarterbacks, and listen, I'll say this, because I truly do believe every quarterback, including Patrick Mahomes, they're all way overpaid. Now, a guy like Mahomes, you can live with it. Yeah, he's taking pay cuts too, but he's still getting it back through the bonus system. But in general, you can live with Mahomes making too much money because he's won you 3 damn Super Bowls in 5 years, okay, and just went back to back. But these other quarterbacks, man, it's like, okay, they've got a big contract that's kicking in now. Can they stabilize the rest of their team and find success? Because I'll see this with the Chiefs and everything they've got going on right now. Man, they've got a lot of players who are entering in the final year of their contracts, and they're not going to bring everyone back. Trey Smith might be gone, especially with the guard market going up. Nick Bolton might be gone. I mean, there are a lot of things Kansas City's got to be prepared for. And listen, this is a good problem to have. You draft so damn well, you got to start thinking about how you're going to keep these guys. And then, by the way, after 2024, you're going to come pretty close to start making decisions on Trent McDuffie, on George Karlaftis, Isaiah Pacheco. And obviously, you can use fifth-year options on a couple of those guys I mentioned, but then you got to try to extend them to a long-term deal because that's what you want to do. It's not going to be very easy. And I guess those are the problems you run into when you're as great as the Chiefs and you win so much and have great players all across the board, almost your entire 22. Yeah, I mean, me too, Scott. I wish we could get T. Higgins as well, but there's no way Cincinnati's trading him to a conference rival. No way. Robert says, what happened to Jerick McKinnon? He's still available. Normally, the Chiefs are able to bring him back after the draft. The last 2 years, this might be it. And I know a lot of people are looking at the jersey number and the fact that Worthy is wearing number 1. I don't think that's I don't think that's the final nail in the coffin, so to say. I still think there's a chance, but I would say probably not too big of a chance. He's still out there, to my surprise. I know he didn't have as good of a year last year with injuries and production going down. But I still think he could be a big asset to any team. Yeah, he's up there in age, but it's not like he's been utilized so much over the years. It's not like he's been a workhorse for teams in the past. He still has some left in the tank, I think. It just takes a good offense. I mean, yeah, he fits great in this offense, but maybe the Chiefs have moved on from him. Hopefully not. But let's see. Have I seen the Bolton commercial for Lee Summit Subaru? I have not. I do know there are a lot of Chiefs players that are getting a lot of those dealership commercials. Which, by the way, this is something you got to think of too. If you're going to be a soon-to-be free agent and you want to go somewhere else, you got to think about, if I leave Kansas City, I lose all these sponsorships that I have. And when you go to a new city, maybe you can get a new sponsorship, but maybe you're going to have to work hard to attain that. And that can be difficult as well. It's very similar in sports talk radio. If you're a sports talk radio host and you leave Kansas City, let's just say, for example, and you want to go to a bigger market like LA, a much bigger market, well, if you had a lot of sponsorship reads that you were doing in Kansas City, you got to start all over when you go to LA because people in LA are not going to know who the hell you are. They're going to say, okay, you're the new guy on the block. We're not going to give you a sponsorship because no one here knows you. You kind of have to work hard and build your way up there. And that might take a little bit of time. Then you can try to get those sponsorship reads that you once had in Kansas City. So now, is that the biggest thing in the world they're worried about? No, but that's something you got to consider if you're a football player and you do have partners, sponsorships in the city that you play for. So just wanted to throw that out there. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and wrap things up here. Hey, appreciate you guys joining me for this episode of the Chiefs Zone podcast. A lot of things we covered here. Appreciate you guys taking the time to download, listen, watch live on Facebook and YouTube. I will talk to you all Wednesday night when the NFL schedule drops. I will talk to all of you then. Take care. Talk to you all later. Peace out.